Good day, lords and ladies, and welcome to Sovl, a Cornish first look. This is a tabletop war game with the rule set being applicable for both the digital space and the physical space. In the digital medium we're looking at today, it's still in early access with a 0.78 release as its current public release. There is a beta in the works. There is a beta branch in the works at the moment, which does add a lot more depth to the game. I believe it adds 3D modeling. So you, instead of just having the units blocks on the battle map, you actually have models, which is really nice. This game is developed and published by Dalen Studios, and it is currently free on Steam. I will leave a link in the description below. And but the DLC for some of the expanded factions you do have to pay for. So first things first, let's look at the settings. Very basic, but the game itself doesn't require a lot of setting information, though this is, even by that standard, a little bit basic. Replays allow you to basically replay gameplay. The standard thing for any kind of tabletop tactics game. Rules reference is nice. The only thing I would say is that the rules reference takes you out of the game to basically a windowed screen. It takes you into basically opens up your internet browser and loads at their web page. It would be nice if the rules reference was actually inside the game system, so it doesn't make you tab out. Because that's always useful, especially if you're trying to record the game or something like that. Multiplayer, you have ranked against other people, custom game, or versus AI. And then you have the single player experience, which is the Trail of Depth. Sovl has basically a roguelike element in its campaigns. You can play campaigns, we've got to check that out. I will say this now, that this game, in my opinion, has inspiration from Warhammer Fantasy. So it's not an issue. I have no problem with it. Warhammer Fantasy for a wargaming rule system is quite iconic. So if you're looking for a more I'm just saying this because if you're looking for a more down to earth, realistic wargaming experience, this may not be the game for you, because there are obviously stuff like greenskins, dwarves, elves, undead, that kind of thing. Now, I only have access to the first 5, which are humans, greenskins, dwarves, elves, and undead. There are another 6 factions. You have the Goatmen, you've got the Abyssal Legion, you've got Deepwood Guardians, Rat King clans, Reptilian Kingdoms, and Darkborn Elves. These you have to buy on Steam, and this is where the DLC aspect. The base game is free, which I think adds a lot of replayability, because you get 5 factions initially, each one with 7 challenge levels. And if I believe the first 5 all come with 3 characters, yes, they do. So you have them all behaving differently. For example, the captain will have different stats to the knight commander, who will have different stats to the imperial wizard, and they all behave differently. One thing I would like to say is that if the developers are watching, it would be nice for you to see when you click your character, it would be nice to see not only their stats by hovering over them, but what their bodyguard unit is, for lack of a better word, or what their basically personal unit is, because every character comes with a personal unit. The captain comes with a footman, the knight commander, I suspect he either comes with a unit of dismounted knights, for it's probably going to be more likely something like a regiment, like a squad of knights. And the Imperial Wizard, I believe, comes with a range unit, because that would make sense. Because each character, I think, is supposed to have a different bodyguard type. So just see what we get. Like, we'll go captain of the guard captain. We'll go with him. I have completed the game once, so I have unlocked the first challenge level, which is less starting gold. Not going to do that right now. I'm going to turn that off, and we're just going to play basic just to show off the base gameplay. So let's first get into it. So this is what you would get. Actually, I should also say, I forgot to sort at the top. There is you do accumulate experience in this game through multiple runs, and it basically unlocks you new units for you to play. That's all it basically unlocks. There's not a lot of other things it unlocks, such as skins or that kind of thing, or challenges. It just unlocks more units. So what do we got to pick? We have 2 units to pick from that goes with alongside our character and his retinue. So let's grab some halabards. Halabards or spearmen? Actually, no. Spearmen are actually better. This is really the thing. I'd like to see if you hovered over them. I'd like to basically see their stats pop up, or just some of the information about them. I'm going to go spearmen, and then it's Imperial Knights or Imperial Dreadnought or Mortar. Now we are lacking in mobility, but mortars early on would be nice. So we're going to have Imperial Spear, Imperial Mortar, and Captain with his retinue. Okay. So this is the roguelike element. You can see the actor in the amount of gold in the top left-hand corner. You have your menu, which is save and exit and continues, are pretty basic. You have your army view. Now, this is important. The army view matters because, like any good war game, for example, you can increase the width of your units. You can basically decrease the width of your units, and that will impact how many units are actually in combat and how many attacks are carried out. You can click on them. The easiest way to do it is click on them, and then it also pop up here, and you can increase the width of the unit, that kind of thing. And each unit comes with its own special abilities, I believe. Yeah, like sword, like Imperial Spears, Shield and Spear, +1 defense, extra rank supporting attacks when not charging. Yeah, and these guys get plus. I just want the actual sword unit, not his bodyguard. Yeah, hand and shield. So these guys are better on the charge, these guys are better on the defense. And then you have your old-fashioned mortar crew, which is basically, which protects a range, that kind of thing. And you can basically change the width, and it's important. This thing is important. One thing I would say, it'd be nice when you hovered over it, it just popped up here rather than you having to select the unit in question. Because there are times when you forget that it is there. Right, so let's kick things off. Our end goal is to get through to here and complete the chapter and go into the next continent or island or whatever it is we're on. And there are 5 different things we can interact with. There are standard battles, which are depicted with the normal cross swords, random encounters, armories, which is where you basically buy equipment for your character and your units and buy new units. They're going to be predominantly where you will be getting new units from. Elite battles, which can be pretty brutal, so be aware if you're going into them. They always come with enemy characters, normally of the variety that you could pick from in the starting menu. So some like renamed variety of that. And then you have camps where you basically are your healing and additional experience gathering opportunity. So if we wish to completely bypass elite battles, we'd go the top path and sneak around up here. A lot of random encounters though, and trust me, the random encounters in this game can be really brutal, so it may not be worth it. If we wanted to get the most battles, we could go along this pathway here, but that would rob us. There's a couple ways we could do it. We could go along here, a couple of battles, random event, armory, tent, battle, random event, and then if we're feeling like it, we could go elite battle, armory, tent. That might be the best way. Or if we're being brutally honest, we could go along here, which would give us 3 battles, elite battle, another elite battle. Might be the best way to do it. We would take quite a bit of casualties though. And we're not going to have a ton of money early on. But let's go along here. It's the most fighty path, to be honest, and we're not going to get to the end boss in this showing of the game anyway. So let's go along here. So it's going to be us, Captain Theatre, versus Goblin Riders. And here is the battle map. Now, I will say this. I do like the effects in this game. I'd like there to be more map variety. To be honest, that is the one downside, is the lack of battle map variety is quite telling. So I'd like to see a bit more variety in this. Right, so first of all, we deploy to see who goes first. The enemy is going first because they rolled the lowest. Man, that's a lot of wolf riders. Okay. We do not have a lot of sight, which is not great. If you can do Control X, you can see your charge range. Control C sees the enemy's charge range. Shift X is your fire cone, and it's the same for them, but they don't have any fire units. Okay, so let's first activate one of our units and push them up. Yeah, we're actually in a pretty bad situation here, I'm not going to lie, because they hit pretty hard. So let's... the Wolf Riders do anyway for the Goblins. It's one of their best units. So let's try and chip off as much as... yeah, and they're going to come charging right down the flank and we're going to be exposed. Okay. Personally, I think the mortar should allow you to shoot over terrain. There are some very weird things in this game I don't agree with when it comes to tactical use. Like, let's just see. So you got to charge off. They'll get a charge off this turn, which is annoying. So let's get the banner going, which is a rally ability for our units, because the next round is beginning. And the way we win is by the enemy's confidence meter dropping below a certain extent. We are going to have to take that charge, unfortunately. There is not a lot we can do about that. So they're going to crash into us. The goblin unit is going to be a pain, so we're just going to have to move up and try and block. I don't... this is the thing I dislike about this. It's the whole... you can't see over terrain with like artillery, which I don't believe in. Okay, so we're into the combat situation. So the way the combat works in this game is you look at your stats. I can't press this because this will kick us out of the game automatically. But lack of better rules, they're rolling with power, which is basically how you your skill is determining if you're hitting, and then it's basically your power against their defense, I believe. This is why I really prefer to have information popping up in game when you're hovering over it rather than tabbing out. So they get 2 attacks. They have 2 wounds each. So there's 5 models of them. In the Brave branch, you will have actual models on the field rather than just squad indicators or member indicators. So he's got defense of 3 versus he's got power 4, which is the strength of his attack, versus defense of 4. So we're rolling 4s to basically save. I lose 4 of my units. We counterattack with all 10 of my guys, which is power 3 against his defense 3. Which is 4s to hit. We get 4 off. He's rolling to save, so he loses 1. We lose by 2, so then it goes to a roll, which means we then have to, discipline. Our leadership is 7, with a rank bonus of 1, with -2 to the roll, so it's 6. We need to roll below 6. We fail, so we break, and this is going to be a really short campaign. It is just going to how it's going to be. I can't do anything about it. They're going to charge my units. Yeah, this map is over, and this is one of the things I will say about this game, is that If you get a bad map like this, it's basically over. Like, we've lost straight away. Like, there's pretty much no point me even bothering to continue playing this, because I'm going to have lost so many units that the way that we actually continue is pointless. That was the character, by the way. You can scroll down here and see what's going on. So my character rolled, here we go, Captain, attack Goblin Mob, 2 hit because of his stat line. They failed to save, so they lost 2 units. Then our guys stick in, and they lose another 3. They return attack, 5 hits out of 10 with one thing. Okay, this is one thing I'm going to say. I know they say the dice rolls are random, but I have seen a lot of, if it was in a normal game, like a tabletop game, having people roll like 6, like rolling like 7 or 8 dice where it's 5 and above and they all get 5s and 6s is a bit odd. I don't know. I know that they're constantly trying to balance the system, but at the same time, the enemy seems to make a lot of very impressive saves. So I don't know how much I believe their claims that the game's dice are just completely random. I am slightly skeptic about that, because I've been playing fights where I've rolled like 12 dice and most of them have come up 5s and 6s, which, probability speaking, is nearly impossible. And then they've done it multiple times. So I do question just how random the AI's dice savings are. So it is something I wonder about from time to time with this game. I like it a lot, but my personal grievance is always against games where they say, "Oh, the dice is random," but in actuality, it's the fact that the AI is getting boosts. I mean, the AI in this game is actually fairly good, to be honest. The tactical notion is competent. It knows how to flank. It knows how to get around units. Yeah, at this stage, like, we've lost. I'm not going to lie. Like, this battle is over. I normally would have quit by now, because the amount of damage, like, we've lost multiple units. It's just not worth it. To be honest, I've never actually seen this combination early on of having 2 units of Wolf Riders and 1 unit of Goblins. They normally go in for units of, like, ranged guys early on. But, like, this is actually pretty hard. Cavalry in this game is quite powerful, as is ranged units. But we are absolutely getting ourselves handed to us. So yeah. But I don't know, like, I really like this game. I like how the dice display, I like the tactical element of it. It really scratches that sort of Warhammer, like, wargamer itch that I have. At the same time, though, I am a little bit dubious about just how random their dice rolls are. So he's going to counter-charge me, and this guy's going to swing into the flank, and yeah, we've pretty much lost it at this stage, because he's going to flank me next turn. I mean, just the sheer amount of times the enemy can save is... I don't know. I don't mind if the game is fudging the dice slightly for the AI, but it seems very coincidental that when you get a lot of... I've noticed it myself, when the enemy gets a lot of 5+ saves, there will always be at least a couple which are saves. See here, look, see, 5+ saves, gets a 5 again like it was last time. As you can see, going down further in the record here, another 5+ save, another one saves. I don't mind about the lower score, but especially with elite units where they're having obscenely powerful saves, like 2+ saves. Yeah. Like, we've won, but we took absolutely horrific casualties. Not so worried about the wounds on this one because I want the money. The wounds on artillery don't really impact its ability to function. But it will impact our ability to keep going. Okay. You can save to replay after every battle, which is nice, and then we go into a random event. And these random events can be absolutely brutal. Forgotten Tomb, yeah. Forgotten Tomb is horrible, because your army has found a forgotten tomb in the wilderness. Does it contain ancient treasure or slumbering evil? Form a search party to investigate or leave it be. Normally, I'll just give you an example. So we'll send a unit in. We found 0 treasure. Okay. But it can be stuff like you use models, you lose. Like, I've had a unit that hang around in an area and became undead. You can hire mercenaries of different factions. Okay, we're fighting orcs. As our next opponent. So, for example, with the unit stats here, skill is basically your likelihood of hitting, I believe. Power is getting past their save, their defense save. Like, so when they're doing the armor saving throw, the higher your power is compared to the defense, the higher they have to roll. You add attacks, wounds, how many wounds they can take, and the discipline is their morale. I would like to describe it, I can't remember exactly in more detail, but I worried that if I basically press this, it would take us outside the game. Okay, so we are going to have a blocking force, which is going to be the spearmen. I mean, really, one thing I will say about this game that I wish was a bit different is that cavalry and archers in this game are very powerful. Which is, in real life, that's how they would have been. But it's the fact that my normal strategy for playing the Empire faction is that you have... Normally, I have one unit of what I call like a blocking unit, basically a large chunk of infantry, and I'll either have outriders or basically dragoons, which are basically blokes and horses with pistols that can flank and do damage and sort of kite the enemy around the map. Or I'll have something like heavy cavalry, normally both if I'm able, and the heavy cavalry will slam into units. If you're up against factions, say like the orcs, which have cavalry, and you don't have cavalry, you're massively at a disadvantage. There's very little way of countering enemy cavalry without having cavalry or archers of your own. So we did a nice chunk of damage, because he's going to come in here now. And we need to basically position our spears to take the charge. The orcs will charge us. So we're going to basically position our own unit here. If you hover over here, over a unit I should say, you can see where the flanks, the unit's front, flanks and rear facing angles are. And you get different modifiers depending if you can smash into those lines of attack. So we are here. I will activate a defense because that unit's going to get charged next turn, and we will block. Now the AI is pretty predictable. It will take this charge because it can charge. We can counter charge, but if we hold, we get extra attacks, which is more likely to be beneficial. I should have done that. One thing I would also like to do is I'd like to be able to turn off charges, like to exit. Because unfortunately I messed up there, which means we're probably going to lose this fight. We'll drop another mortar round on the enemy. We're going to push up to block their ability to charge our unit. And this unit's probably going to get slaughtered because I didn't stand to defend. As you can see, their power is 5 versus our power 4. Yeah, so power versus defense. So we are going to lose a lot of units. We lost 2. We probably would have lost less if we'd actually held. Now the problem is they're going to charge us next turn. Yeah, I'm not particularly happy with this makeup. I probably should have taken something like cav rather than artillery. But there's nothing we can do about that. What I will do though, you've seen enough of the basic gameplay, I think. There's nothing else we can do. This unit's dead. Okay. We win that fight, but this unit's pretty much going to get wiped out. Yeah. And then it's going to go into our arty in the back. This is one thing I will say I dislike about this is one of the tactics you can do is you can hop from charge to charge to charge, from charge to charge to charge, which pretty much makes you invulnerable. It is one of the flaws of the game. The fact that you can't shoot into melee. Personally, I can see why they did it, because ranged combat in this game is very powerful, so preventing it from dominating totally would be great. But the downside is the fact that you can very easily chain combats together to prevent your units from getting shot, which I feel is a bit gimmicky. Personally, I would have preferred it that if you shoot into combat, you basically you roll to wound and then you roll a die to see if you hit allies or if you hit enemy units. Because that makes more sense to me rather than having it as completely immune to ranged combat of any type. AI once again got really lucky with its saves. I don't know, maybe I am just being paranoid over the dice rolls, but I've seen a lot of dice rolls in this game where it is unusually from basically a likelihood standpoint, basically from a percentage standpoint, just how, well, probability I should say. I just seen a number of dice rolls where the probability of getting them in a row is extremely low, and certain units will get them a lot. So I just basically wonder about it, that's all. But that's just me. Also, one of the other things I would say is the game needs to have basically a revert button, like basically a back button or exit if you change your mind. As it stands, it doesn't have that yet. So once you select something, you cannot back out. Okay, so here we go for the shop. In the shop, you can recruit regiments, normally of your faction, but of other factions as well. So we could get like a mount for our main character. We could get some Imperial handgunners, which maybe could be a good bet. Then you get unit upgrades. Unit upgrades basically function at giving certain things. For example, for the captain, we could get a great weapon, which is power bonus, plus charge bonus, extra attack, range attack. Your units can get stuff like armor and different banners. I would say I'd like to see a bit more customization for the individual units. Maybe we could click the names and rename the units would be nice, or having stuff like maybe having a unit drummer, or maybe having getting a sergeant, which gives you. I don't mind having banners, but it would be nice to have having a sergeant for a unit gives you maybe a couple of extra attacks. Having a musician has basically rather than have a banner of valor, which is re-roll fail disciplinary test, which is fine. But the thing is, most of the time I find you gravitate to certain things that affect your units. For example, With the Imperial Spearmen having something like a Banner of Mist, which means that enemies suffer range penalties, is proportionately better than having one that allows you to re-roll discipline tests, because range is so powerful in this game. So it would be nice, for example, maybe have something like a drummer boy, which you can have, which is separate. I mean, like, to be honest, it's all cosmetic. You can have multiple banners on each unit, so you can take both of these. It's not an issue. But I'd like to have, like, say, like, have a drummer boy rather than, say, like, have a banner. Maybe just a cosmetic thing, especially since they're seeming to bring in models for the unit. It'd be nice to see, like, a model, if you zoomed in, to be the unit, like, bugler or the unit drummer, alongside they're having, like, the bannerman. I'd like to see that. I don't know if they will do it though, so that's going to be a lot of work to have, like, every unit having variances depending on what upgrades you get. We'll grab the Imperial Gunners. They're powerful but at close range. We have a little bit of money left over. I will grab an extra. I go normally 200 weapon for heroes, and then we have this. So you can go into your army view now, and as you can see here, we have our Imperial Handgunners. You can see their line up across here. Very nice. You have their range and power. With range units that aren't artillery, they have basically a drop off over distance. So the further away you're shooting, the harder it is to hit. Handgunners are powerful, but they're more close range. So just take that into consideration. I probably, once again, will make it a wide unit because it's meant to be a blocking unit. I mean, as much as I like the Shield and Spears +1 defense extra rank supporting attacks when not charging, I don't know, like, the Halberds I found much better because, like, yes, they don't have the extra defense, but the enemy can never roll over a certain level of power on their attacks, which means that if you put Halberds in front of, say, cavalry or monsters, it really stops them in their tracks. But yeah, you also have here the level of experience. Your units level up, get certain perks, like extra skills, extra. It's normally stuff like extra money, extra stats. Sometimes, like for officers, it will be like new abilities or that kind of thing. It's like the roguelike element creeping in. It is very nice. Overall, with Sovl, I like this game a lot. I think it has a lot of promise. Do I like everything about it? No. Do I think they need to basically make it so that you can't just sort of cheese the range combat units? Which you basically can. The game's range elements are quite powerful, so they just completely nerfed them by saying, okay, you can't shoot into melee. Thus, you can't shoot into melee and it blocks line of sight. So the easiest way to stop range units from shooting your units is to basically have a battle line form up and then have people hiding behind it so they can't get shot at. Do I believe that they should be able to shoot over melee with certain artillery units? Yeah, I do, because that's how historically it was. Like, mortars were meant to angle over. With cannons, maybe not. With mortars and, say, longbows or crossbows, yeah, you should be able to shoot over melee into the unit. I can see why they're not doing it, because they're trying to balance out the fact that ranged combat in this game is quite powerful. And to be honest, I use it myself. If I'm playing the Empire, I'll have... I've had games where I've had multiple horse pistoler units, and basically just kited the enemy round so they can't get in charge range, and I just shoot them to bits with pistols. Because the enemy foot infantry finds it really hard to counter cavalry in this game. And so if you're playing a heavy infantry force and you're up against cavalry, you're in for a bad time. You either need strong range units, which even then isn't a guarantee, or you need to have cavalry of your own to basically force the AI to try and sort of wheel around and deal with you. But overall, I think the game is really good. I like the mechanics of it. It gets challenging. I don't know how much the game is helping the AI behind the scenes with dice rolls and the like. It could just be my imagination, but it's, in my honest opinion, I find it a bit odd the amount of saves that it manages to pull off from a probability standpoint, especially when you're fighting like very elite units, where they manage to get a lot of saves past, even though probability speaking they shouldn't. But it's just my interpretation. Like, take it with a grain of salt, folks. It could just be me being paranoid. I don't have the best luck when it comes to dice rolling in computer games in general. I never seem to do very well at it. So it could just be being paranoid. But I do like this game a lot. I'll put a link in the description, and if you wish to check it out, go ahead and follow the link. It is a free game with, as I said, the first 5 factions free, with a lot of replayability. And I shall see you all again next time. This has been Sovl, and I shall see you again. Goodbye.